Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Edinburgh International Book Festival. My name is Eleanor, and I work for the Edinburgh City of Literature Trust. Edinburgh was designated a City of Literature by UNESCO in 2004, and as part of that wonderful designation in our literary city, the Trust encourages and discovers and engages enthusiastically with the new and emerging writing talent that the city has to offer, and it really has a phenomenal amount of talent in it. Story Shop is a wonderful program that has actually been going now for 10 years, and it started in 2007. So without further ado, let me introduce today's writer for you. Laura Anderson is a writer with a screenwriting master's from Screen Academy Scotland, and she won a place in the Talent Lab 2016 at the Edinburgh International Film Festival. She's also an emerging actor, a journalist, a writer of games, stories, and she's working on her upcoming novel. So please join me in welcoming Laura Anderson to the stage to read her story, Dinner with Audrey.
Hi everyone, thank you for resisting the beautiful sunshine to be here. Thank you also to the Edinburgh International Book Festival and City of Literature Trust for this opportunity. It's amazing. So I'm Laura Anderson and this is Dinner with Audrey. It started, as so many things do, with an egg. In this case it was a chicken's egg, one of a pack of 12, free range, obviously. I had it in my hand, perhaps in a looser grip than I should have, and I was about to bring it down and crack it into the pan when she spoke. No, that won't do at all, I'm afraid. I have a small kitchen, an Edinburgh tenement kitchen. There's barely room for my spice collection, let alone another human being. If I'm doing the dishes and scrub too energetically, for instance, I can sometimes hit my elbows off the cutlery drawer. Anyway, she was there somehow in that tiny space, squeezed effortlessly between the fridge and the washing machine. She raised her eyebrows at the mess on the floor. I'd just dropped the egg, of course, and then gave a rather dramatic sigh. Why don't you clean that up, and I'll prepare things properly? I nodded, becoming a meek and silent version of myself. I didn't even ask how she had come to be in my kitchen. It didn't seem important, really. All that mattered was that she was there. She negotiated the space around me as I went to work on the floor with bleach spray and some cheap kitchen towel. While I was on my hands and knees, wiping up the mess and hoping it wouldn't leave a clean spot, she bustled around the room. I took in her clothing. Black ballet pumps, crop black trousers, and a very fitted black top. I would never look as good in the same outfit. I dared to look up a little more. As well as the fabulous clothing, she was wearing a bemused expression. Givenchy. It's always Givenchy. I nodded and stood. This is the outfit I wore in Sabrina, of course, when I cooked dinner for Bogart. She watched as I threw the dirty kitchen towel into the bin, then waited for me to wash my hands. Now see, 2 bowls, 1 for eggs, 1 for shells. Watch me and try. This was something I learned on Sabrina, hence the outfit. She picked up an egg, held it like it was the most delicate piece of porcelain in the world, then brought it sharply down on the edge of the bowl. In one fluid motion, she had emptied the contents into the first bowl, yolk intact and no shell in sight, and tossed the spent shell into the other. It's all in the wrist. I'm going to be honest, it took more than a few tries until I'd managed to imitate her wrist action. She was good about it, bless her, flinched a bit and handed me a spoon a couple of times so I could fish out bits of shell, but otherwise she just nodded encouragement. She stayed quite silent until I was on egg 11. You know, Bogart didn't think I could act on Sabrina. We didn't get on terribly well. It didn't matter though. I only had eyes for William at that point. Anyway, history has proven him wrong, I think. I nodded again and felt something in my neck twinge at the repeated action. The last 2 eggs cracked almost perfectly, and she even deigned to smile at me. You're making an omelette, I gather? I I'd be making about 5 omelettes with that amount of eggs, I thought, but I didn't say that. I just nodded. Of course. Then we need more ingredients. A quick rummage in the fridge produced a block of cheddar, which she glared at. We need colour, darling. Make your plate look like a rainbow, a work of art, and you'll feel good about what you eat. There was no real reply to this, but I took her quite literally for my second forage in the fridge. I picked items based purely on her colour theory: tomatoes, pesto, peppers, mushrooms, a red onion, and blueberries. She pushed the blueberries aside without comment. Chop? I chopped, she watched. She seemed more impressed with my skills here, and I refrained from telling her about the time I almost cut my brother's finger off. This is a small flat. You live like this at your age? No children, no husband? These are different times, I wanted to say. No need. She knew the truth, though, so I didn't. Sautéing the vegetables was easy enough compared to the egg cracking, and she didn't have many complaints there. She took over completely when it came to adding the eggs and making the omelette itself, though. I put on the grill when instructed and grated the cheese, but that was it. The omelette, needless to say, was huge. Once it was almost finished, she added the cheese and moved it to the grill. Set the table, please. I did. I ran to the living room and tidied up a bit, hiding the trashy magazines and my socks, sweeping up all the bills and stuffing them into the sofa. I lit candles because it was her, you know. Sounds silly now, but then so does this whole story. I didn't think a bit of romance would do her any harm. She came through to my living room just as I was laying the cutlery out. It wasn't Sabrina now, but Holly Golightly in the infamous black dress and tiara. I froze up. I definitely never looked that good in my entire life, and never would. Sit down then. I sat, took the plate she handed me, and waited for her to sit down too. This seems a very lonely room. I shrugged, as my passive nod didn't seem quite right, even though this was the truth. We ate a few bites of the omelette, fluffy, tasty, perfectly cooked. Then she did another of her grand sighs and stood up. I had 2 children in the end. I almost had a great many more. If you want them to, you need to think about that now. I stopped myself from replying. What I wanted to say wasn't important, and she knew it anyway. Your job as well. You need to think about what you really want to do. Are you doing it? We both knew that I wasn't. Seemed rather cruel of her to ask, in fact. Sorry. I like to see people smile, though. It lights up the face, the soul, the life. What are you doing to make yourself smile? When did you last laugh? Laughter cures a multitude of ills, you know. I gestured rather pathetically at my bookshelves. Books made me smile, sometimes. No. What about your dreams? What about the aspiration you had to paint when you were a teenager? Or last year's desire to learn Italian? What about moving to Rome and working in a cafe? You wanted to do that for years. You had so many dreams once, didn't you? She had me there. You could as easily work in a cafe in Rome as a shop here, you know. Nothing is impossible. The word itself is I'm possible. I'd read a quote of hers before, which was very like that, and although I hadn't agreed with it at the time, it did strike a chord that night. She gave a small twirl. Holly Golightly in her black dress was gone, replaced by Eliza Doolittle in a bonnet. She started, rather randomly to my mind, singing, "Wouldn't it be lovely?" and dancing round the room. It was quite a sight and sound, as you can imagine. I was at the point of getting up and joining her when she suddenly stopped and gave me a strange, sad look. You could still be alone if that's what you truly want to be. I love to be alone sometimes, to walk alone, to clear my mind. You can do that. You could allow yourself to love, though. I loved my Robert, although it took a long time to find him. I had 2 failed marriages by then and so many disappointments, but My heart stayed open to love, and I'm glad it did. My stomach tightened up at this, and the urge to dance disappeared. She shook her head. I think you need to be happy. It's all that matters, really. Happiness. I found this statement quite hard to cope with, and instead of looking at her, I stared at the remains of my omelette. A tear fell on the plate, and it took me by surprise when I realized it was my own. A hand touched my shoulder, her hand. She was older now and not in character. This was her, Audrey Hepburn herself, truly wearing a loose smock and headscarf. She still looked more elegant and sublime than anyone I'd met in real life, but I knew she was ill. The effects of the cancer and its treatment were writ on her skin. You can't let your world be defined by your losses, your mistakes, your fears. You know that. You should grow strong from them, learn from them, and move on. I tried to take her hand, but she shook her head and lowered her face until our eyes met. Her eyes showed her illness and her beauty. You can't touch me. I'm not real. You need a real person to touch. She straightened up, and the lack of contact felt like a little loss. Life is for living. Go, live. She walked into the hallway, and I ran after her. She wasn't there, so I checked the kitchen, the bathroom, the bedroom. Nothing. She was gone, had vanished, left me all alone. For the first time in a long time, I let the feeling of loneliness wash over me. I didn't like it. She was right about so many things. I went back into the living room, got my laptop down from a shelf, and switched it on. While a price comparison website loaded details of cheap flights to Rome, I ate the rest of the omelette. It was, all things considered, excellent.
Thank you, Laura. That was a really good impression of Audrey Hepburn. She was in the room. That was brilliant. Thank you very much. We're here every day, 3 o'clock in the Spiegel tent, right up until a week on Monday the 29th of August. So please do come back and enjoy more stories from emerging voices of Edinburgh. Tomorrow, we will be hearing a story from Sarah Eakin. I look forward to seeing you then. Thank you.